You're listening to Seminary Dropout, and I'm your host, Shane Blackshear. In cooperation with MissioAlliance.org, straight from my house in Austin, Texas to yours, interviews with leading Christian authors, leaders, and thinkers, because good theology should be for everyone. This is Seminary Dropout. Let's go. All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I've wanted to do this for so long. It means so much that you came to my house and you're all sitting here. I can't believe this is happening. So here's what I want to do. We're going to get to the interview. We're going to do all that. I wanted to start us off a little bit differently. Before I do that, I'm going to adjust your mic. Yeah, just make sure, you know how mics work. Okay, we're good. I'd like to start us off in a little exercise, if that's okay. I got this book, and I don't know much about it. It's called Imaginative Prayer. The thing about if you start a podcast, people will send you a lot of books all the time, and some of them are good. This one looks really good. I'm excited about it. It's about imaginative prayer, and it's also for children. But I was looking through, and there's very few things in here that, probably no things in here that aren't also beneficial for adults as well. And so I thought, if it's okay, we could start out by walking through this imaginative prayer together, if that's cool. Okay, so here's what I want us to do. Close your eyes. Let's take a few deep breaths together. God, I pray that you will release our imagination and help us to hear you speak to us during this time together. We open our hands to you. We open our ears to you. Come, Holy Spirit. Imagine with me that you are a part of a club. Imagine that you are part of a club, but it isn't a secret club. It's a club that anyone can join. There are no secret passwords. There are no secret handshakes. There are no secret knocks on the door of a treehouse. Everyone is welcome. In fact, there are no t-shirts. There are no special things for you to buy to be a part of this club. There are no monthly dues to pay. Imagine you're at a club meeting where a discussion is going on about how to let people know that you are part of the club. Some people suggest that everyone wear green scarves. Imagine being in a club where everyone had to wear a green scarf. That seems funny to you and to others. Imagine that everyone is having fun thinking about the suggestion of wearing a green scarf. Everyone suggests that this is a fun idea, but it is probably not the best way to let people know you are a part of the club. Other people suggest hats. Still, others suggest a special bracelet or a necklace. What do you think the thing that sets your special club apart should be? What do you think club members should do to let everyone else know that you are part of this special club? Do you think it should be about something you wear? Or maybe it should be about something that you all do. Perhaps you could all learn the same dance or have a special song that everyone sings. Imagine with me that someone has drawn a picture of a badge, almost like a police badge. Imagine that this person wants everyone to wear a badge on their shirt to let everyone else know that they are a part of the club. This is another good idea, but there is still something missing. It just doesn't seem to fit. Some people want to create a list of rules for the club. They want to say that members of the club can't wear the color orange, for example. One person wants all members of the club to only eat with their hands. No forks, no knives, no spoons, just hands. Another person suggests that everyone get a tattoo on their arm. Imagine what it would be like to have to get a tattoo on your arm just to be in a club. This seems to be getting out of hand. What would you suggest? How would you want everyone to be identified as a part of the club? Imagine now that someone stands up in front of everyone else. You're curious what this person might say, and you're curious because this is the leader of the club. This is the person who started the club in the first place. Imagine that everyone is quiet and silent, waiting for the leader of the club to speak. Imagine that the leader begins to speak. I know that many of you are wondering what sort of badge or mark or special handshake we might have for our club. I too have been thinking about this, and I have an idea. What if people could know we all belong together and are all a part of the same club simply because of our love for each other? What if we loved each other so well that people would notice? What if when people saw us loving each other, they would know that we are members of the club? Think about this for a moment. What would it feel like to be a part of a club where the special thing that held you all together was your love for each other? Imagine everyone in the club is thinking about this suggestion. The people with hats take off their hats. The people with green scarves take off their scarves. The people who are drawing badges set down their art supplies. Everyone is listening to the leader who begins to speak again. Imagine if all of us simply love each other so well that people will want to join the club. Imagine if we welcomed everyone. Imagine that everyone in the club begins to love each other really well. That love becomes your badge of membership. You see people around you serving each other, helping each other with chores, sharing snacks, taking turns, and saying nice things about each other. This is the command that Jesus gave us when he invited us all to follow him. He said, "Let me give you a new command. Love one another. In the same way I loved you, love one another. This is how everyone will recognize that you are my disciples, when they see the love you have for each other." Love looks like being patient and kind and not making a list of people's mistakes. Love looks like inviting people who may be left out. Love looks like taking care of people when they need help. We love others with the love that God pours into us. People will know that we are followers of Jesus because of our love for each other. All right, open your eyes. Thanks for doing that with me. Now, let's have a little talk. Okay, so now you get to see how the sausage is made here, and you know that when I'm reading people's bio, I'm usually reading it from the back of the actual book. Make sure we're recording here. Way to start us out, Chris. Destroyed the mood. I'm kidding. As long as nobody's going to be hurt, no big deal. All right. We're good. Okay. My guest is Andrea Lucado. Andrea is a freelance writer based in Austin, Texas, the daughter of the best-selling author and pastor Max Lucado. She inherited an obsession with words and their arrangement. She has a master's in English literature from Oxford Brookes University and contributes regularly to online and print publications such as Relevant Magazine and SheReadsTruth.com. When she's not conducting interviews or writing stories, you'll find her laughing with friends at a coffee shop or running in the Texas Hill Country. The new book is called English Lessons. Andrea, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here.
So excited to be here.
And the first episode of Seminary Dropout live in my house. Yay. Welcome, everyone. Sure. Just to prove for those people listening online, there are indeed people in my house. We're not making this up. Little laugh track that I turn on and off. So, Andrea, I usually start out these interviews talking about people's backgrounds because I think that's really important. And even if a book is not autobiographical, usually someone's background has something to do with what they're writing about. Yeah. Nothing happens in a vacuum. But in modern day Christianity, you have one of the most recognizable last names. And so people probably know a lot about your background just because of who your father is.
Yes.
Is that something that you've always embraced or?
No.
No?
Not embraced. I feel like I've gone through different seasons where I was really resistant to that and just didn't want people to know and get really upset. I went to my dad's alma mater for college, and I remember they would read roll on the first day, and inevitably a professor would stop and be like, oh, and just point me out in front of the whole class, which is the last thing you want. So there were some years there that I was really not liking that. But, I mean, as it kind of says in the bio, I inherited so much of what he loves to do, and I'm so grateful for that. And it has opened doors for me, for sure, to be able to write and to be able to do things that I don't know I could have been able to do otherwise. So it's like a really weird tension. I'm really grateful for it, but I'm really like, I want to stand on my own 2 feet. Who am I without this name? You know, I need this name. No, I don't. So it's a complicated. You just asked like the most complicated question of my identity, basically. Yeah. So
I had Shauna Nyquist on, who's the daughter of
Bill Hybels.
Yeah, Bill Hybels, right? Written tons of books, the pastor of an extremely large church, and I was kind of asking her the same question. And growing up in a small town in Texas, my dad was the mayor of my town growing up, like from 4th grade to like basically when I graduated high school. And so I lived in a space where everyone knew who my dad was and thus kind of knew who I was. And I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that I couldn't be my own person. And I had a good relationship with my dad. It wasn't anything personal, but it was so difficult to be my own person. And also to know that, for instance, every little thing, when you mess up in school, that people are seeing that through the lens of who your family is and that sort of thing. Is that kind of stuff that you went through as well?
Yes. I mean, I think you probably did people make a lot of jokes like, oh, like don't do anything bad. We'll tell your dad.
Yeah, well, probably not nearly to the degree that you would have gone through that. But I got a lot of like, 8th graders not realizing that like being a mayor of a small town is not a big deal. That we weren't rich or famous or anything like that, that was like almost a volunteer position. Yeah, but I can imagine that you definitely got the kind of the morality side of that a lot from other people putting that upon you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was definitely the preacher's daughter all through middle school and high school. So I think that put some, and because of that, I wanted to rebel against that and do bad things just to prove people wrong a little bit, which lasted for like a few months. And then I felt so guilty. I confessed everything to my parents. But there was a lot of that pressure. And then I think I put pressure on myself for that too. Like I remember feeling like I need to be put together on the outside and on the inside because spiritually I needed to be put together and I needed to sort of have quiet times and just a lot of pressure to put on yourself as a teenager, who's just trying to figure things out.
Did you feel like you didn't want to bring shame on your family? Like that was a real possibility?
I think so. I don't remember being super aware of like needing to uphold the name, but I think subconsciously I must have been, because of when I look back on how I was and how I was sort of this perfectionist and like still struggle with that, and kind of a striver and achiever. And I think a lot of it is rooted in, okay, I'm growing up in front of a congregation, so I need to have my stuff together. So I think there was some of that pressure for sure.
Hey friends, it's me again, Shane. I just want to tell you again about our beloved sponsor, Compassion International. Compassion is a sponsorship program. They help kids in poverty all around the world escape that poverty through one-on-one sponsorship. It's a fantastic program. Kate and I have been a sponsor for years now. If you haven't, go back and listen to episode 156, where I talk about my recent trip to Sri Lanka. Compassion is the world's leading authority in holistic child development through sponsorship. Listen, you don't need a politician's permission to do good in the world, to bring about justice and reconciliation. If you want to find out more, go to compassion.com/dropout. It's compassion.com/dropout. You can look for links in the show notes to the show as well. So, you go to Oxford. This is after you've done your undergrad. Not Oxford,
Right.
but Oxford Brookes, right?
It's separate.
Yeah, so explain that.
So Oxford University, I didn't go to Oxford, which I wish that I could say that I did. And my mom has definitely like just been like vague about it so that people think I actually went there. But I went to a school that we just called Brookes. Like people in Oxford just called it Brookes to kind of distinguish. But it was more of a like typical American style university that was founded in, not 1100 or whenever Oxford was founded. And it's a great school, but it's not kind of Oxford University. So I talk about, in the book, I distinguish it as like there was Oxford, and then there was like Brookes University. And so like I used the same library, and we actually had a couple of professors that crossed over and taught in both schools. But my library card was a different color. Like there was definitely like, you go to Brookes. I remember one of my friends telling me like, you don't have to tell people you go to Brookes. I was like, I'm not ashamed of going to a normal school. I mean, so yeah, I didn't go to Oxford. And I don't always get to clarify that in interviews. And sometimes the interviewer doesn't know or doesn't realize that because they haven't like really read the book. And so I've definitely done a couple of interviews where people just think I went to Oxford. So I'm glad you brought that up.
If they didn't read the book, that's on them.
Yeah, that's true. I know. They should know that. I talk about it in like the first chapter. So.
What? Yeah, exactly. They didn't have to read a lot of it. You don't read all of it. Just get a little sample.
Yeah.
What was it about Brookes that attracted you?
Well, I had studied abroad for a semester, and actually someone I studied abroad with is here at the live podcast right now, so that's exciting, Amy Jo. So I studied abroad there and loved it, and I knew I wanted to go back, and I knew of a girl at my undergrad who had gone to Brookes and was doing an English master's and stuff, so I kind of heard about it through her. And the whole Oxford thing, I remember sitting down with our department head at Abilene Christian University, that's where I went to undergrad, and he described the application process, and he was like, you need to know, what era you want to study and what professor you want to study under, and I was like, I have no idea. He's like, or you could apply to Brookes, and it's a real like normal application process. I was like, I'm going to do that because I have no idea what I want to study. So I had never seen this school before. Even though I'd studied abroad there, I didn't really know where the school was because it's kind of up on a hill and on the east part of town. And so I didn't know really hardly anything about it before I went. So I was kind of blind walking into the whole thing.
So going back to your upbringing real quick, I would imagine that a lot of your childhood and adolescence was spent in church.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I was there all the time. Church and home are like the same place for me growing up. So I was really comfortable there. I just have so many memories of being there with like the lights shutting off and we're like the last people to leave. I still feel like sometimes I should be the last person to leave. Like if I'm leaving before everybody else, I'm like, I should stay. Like I should do something here. I don't know. I should keep talking to people because that's what we always did. So yes, and I had a really positive church experience as like looking back. I mean, there are definitely some things that I'm like, I probably shouldn't have been taught that, or, like little kind of theological things maybe. But the people there were really just like my family's best friends, and elders' daughters were my best friends, and we would play hide and go seek and like go visit my dad in his office. So, and we had Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night church, because we were Church of Christ, and maybe that's across denominations, I don't know, but so I was in church all the time, like for just services, and then most other days.
Yeah.
In between.
So then you go to Abilene Christian University, and I don't know a lot, but I have a feeling, Kate and I and Leah, yeah, those are the only people in this room that went to Howard Payne, which is like, I kind of imagine just the Baptist version of the Church of Christ school that you went to, which is to say a pretty friendly place for faith.
Yeah, for sure. I remember thinking, oh, I'm not going to be challenged, quote unquote, in my faith at ACU because everybody there is a Christian. But I also thought I needed it because, I said I rebelled a little bit in high school and felt like, I should probably go to a Christian school and be not influenced by the party culture and stuff. And so, but yeah, ACU was a good kind of incubator for me. It definitely was not the real world. I think your professors had to be Christians, and at the time they had to be Church of Christ, like attend a Church of Christ. I don't know if that's true anymore. So it was a very specific type of Christianity, even in that, which was kind of a whole new world. And so it was just the norm. I mean, everyone was a Christian, and a lot of people went to church every weekend, and very different from Brooks, for sure. Completely, it is totally opposite in every way.
Yeah, so you go to Brooks, and it seems like that's kind of the first time where not only are you not surrounded by people that affirm your faith, but people who are openly, for themselves don't buy into it, or, they question faith. It seems like that was probably like the first time you were kind of taken out of that atmosphere.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I grew up very sheltered and very much I went to a school where not necessarily everybody was a Christian, but culturally it was still, everyone went to church on Christmas and Easter. And then I go to Brooks, and I think I have about 20 people in my class. And as far as I know, I'm the only Christian in the room. And I remember talking to my friend Ben, who I write about quite a bit in the book, the first time, and he was asking me all of these questions about church, and because I was telling him that I went to church, and he just seemed to me like maybe he was a Christian too, and it turns out he had been a Christian for like 2 years and then went back to being an atheist. He was just really nice and like curious about so I was like, dang it, I thought you were going to be like my other Christian friend, and he was a friend but an atheist. And so it was the first time I had been in an environment like that, whereas probably most people would maybe experience that earlier, but just in my upbringing and where I went to school, that was the first time. So it was very unnerving for me to be kind of the odd man out in that situation.
But those people really also kind of became your friends too.
Yeah, they were wonderful. I mean, we would do wine and cheese nights together and hang out, and two girls got to be pretty close with them, and Ben, and those two girls both had longtime boyfriends, got to know them. And so we kind of became a group that hung out a good amount of time. And they were really open to my faith and accepting of it and nice. Well, some of them were maybe not so accepting of it, but they were nice about it. And it was interesting because I saw them be so loving towards people and towards each other, especially those friends in those relationships. And I was like, they're more loving than a lot of Christians that I know. And also, it's so interesting to see, like, I thought kind of the source of love was this God that I believed in. And these people don't believe in him, but they have this love in them. Where is it coming from? I had all these questions. They didn't realize I watched them like they were this other species. Like, how are you being so nice to people? Like, where does that motivation come from in you? So they were wonderful, though. Yeah.
I know that when I've been around people who are not people of faith, and they raise questions, part of what I think every time is, how have I not thought of that before? Like, how have I not raised that question to myself before?
Yeah. Well, I remember Ben asking me, do you, and you kind of talked about this, I think, on Sunday, but he was like, I don't understand why you guys go to church every week. I mean, if what you believe in is true, why do you have to get together once a week and just affirm each other in that and like make each other feel better? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't have an answer at the time. And I was like, that's a really good question. I don't know. Most of it was they were raising these questions that I just hadn't really thought about for myself. And Ben recently told me that like I was in Oxford in 2008 to 2009, and that was kind of the height of all of the big atheist books being out by like Richard Dawkins, and Oxford was really the epicenter of kind of this big atheist movement, or at least in publishing, because Dawkins lived in Oxford, and that was a couple of the guys, like they worshipped Richard Dawkins kind of like they would like I worshipped God. But he said, I think that the reason you remember, he read the book and he's like, I think the reason that you probably felt so much of our atheism or that we talked about it so much was because of just the time. Like that was just a big time for atheism. And so I think they were asking big questions because of that, because they were reading things for the first time. And so it was just a really interesting time to be there.
Yeah. So irrespective of you, they were having their own kind of deconstruction.
Yeah,
themselves.
I think so. He kind of helped me see that. I was like, oh, okay. Like he was also sort of, reading stuff and experiencing things.
I remember reading one time where C.S. Lewis said that before he was a Christian, he would have periods of doubting his atheism. And I thought, that is the strangest thing. I've never thought of that before. But I can imagine that would be true, that you would, on the other hand, wonder, like, maybe there is something more,
Mm-hmm. And then they write a book about that year I questioned my atheism
that's right.
and doubted, and then got back to what I really
I don't know. I
believed
met
in.
this weird Christian girl in Oxford, Brooks. So I'm curious about just the process of doubt for you. It sounds like that, at least partly, that there was some anxiety there.
Yes. Yeah, there was. And I don't think I realized how anxious I was, but I remember not being able to sleep sometimes just because I was thinking about, especially in the kind of the first 6 months I was there, because I was wrestling with just these questions. And how do I know God is real? And how do I know that Jesus was his son? Like, that's really crazy. It's like I was hearing the gospel for the first time as an outsider and realizing how ludicrous it sounded. And, like, oh, this person came to earth and he came to save you from your... I mean, it just all sounded so ridiculous all of a sudden. And I've realized how hesitant I was to tell other people that I believed in that. And so I was like, well, do I really believe in this? Because I should be really fervent about this and really like evangelistic. And I was not. I was a really lousy evangelist that year. And I talk about that in the book. I didn't share Christ with anybody. So I think I tried once. It was like a disaster. But because I was questioning it myself. And so, it was anxious. My journals, I didn't really remember, but through the process of writing the book, I read through my journals. I think I had a couple while I was there. And I was like, wow, I was in a really dark place. I was really questioning these things actively. And I was in such an academic environment. That's what people did. They had time to sit around and ask these existential questions that when you get into the real world and you're working and stuff, you don't necessarily sit around and think as much as we did that year. And as a lot of people in that city were doing. So it was almost just a part of the culture there, was to sort of think about that kind of stuff. But yes, I was definitely anxious. Didn't realize it. Now I'm a little more aware of like when I'm feeling anxiety and stuff. But then I think I was just in a lot of turmoil because it felt like, well, who am I without this? I mean, this is so much a part of who I am. So am I anyone without it? Yeah.
I think too, for a lot of people, a lot of the anxiety comes from, and I know this has at least been true for me in my past, in which for those listening and for those here that aren't a part of Austin Mustard Seed, I was fortunate enough to be able to preach last Sunday. And I've been thinking a lot about doubt myself and my journey in doubt in my life. And then also reading English lessons at the same time. And so it was kind of bringing some things reminding me of some things and really fleshing some things out for me. But I think for a lot of believers, it's not so much the actual doubt that brings on the anxiety, but it's the idea of feeling guilty about the doubt, right? Because I think a lot of us have been told that we shouldn't doubt as Christians, and if we doubt, it's because we lack faith, and so that's guilt-inducing. And then also there's even theology out there that if we doubt, we're not Christians, right? And so if I doubt, I can lose my salvation. That's a lot at stake there, right? An eternity in hell. And so, people growing up, I don't know, people, if you heard this, but you'd hear people say things like, you've got to be sure that you're sure that you're sure. And, now when I look at that with my adult brain, I think that's so completely unfair and unrealistic. And so, I can remember when I was much younger and going through those seasons of doubt, the anxiety to me came not so much from the actual doubt, but from the thought that the doubt was causing me to lose my salvation or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was sort of maybe in the back of my mind, like, well, even if I live my life, not believing this anymore, what if it does turn out to be true? Then I end up going to hell because of that. Yeah. And I think a lot of mine was just sort of the daily stuff. Like, well, if God isn't there, who am I going to talk to about this? Who's going to help me in this? How am I going to make this decision if this isn't real? It's almost like kind of my framework for how I operated in life was in question. And then it's like, well, then what do I do? How do I know what to do? How do I know, how to live my kind of daily life without that?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it does. People can, I remember feeling like there were certain people that if I asked them the questions that I really had about faith, like they would kind of hold me like this, like, we need to pray for you. Like but this scripture and all of this, it's like they couldn't just sit with it. Yeah. And so it's like they were afraid of it, and which made me afraid of it. Cause it's like, well, clearly this is wrong. And you also have this thought that nobody else is asking this. Nobody else is struggling with this. So I can't talk about it. We talked about other struggles in youth group and stuff, but I don't remember talking about doubt. Like, oh, what if you go through a season where you just don't know what you believe anymore? You're doubting scripture, or you're doubting, God's existence. I don't remember those being conversations, but I'm sure if I was asking that stuff, other kids were asking the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I think that's such a good point. I think that's like kind of why that trap is so insidious, because I feel like once we do talk about it, it is so freeing for the person talking about it and the people hearing it who are thinking these thoughts but just never felt like they could say them,
Yeah.
And it's so funny because, again, when I think of those seasons of doubt, I shared this on Sunday, but I had just a very specific season once when I was around 12, and then once again when I was around 18. And looking back, I didn't tell anybody about that. I kept it all inside. And I don't think, if I had told people, I don't think they would have shamed me for it. But I think I did believe that if I was seen as a spiritual person or a person who loved Jesus, that would be called into question. Like my maturity as a Christian would be called into question if I admitted that I had doubts.
Yeah, which you don't want. If your dad's the mayor or if your dad's the pastor, you don't,
That's exactly right. I can imagine in your shoes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you don't. And you kind of think, if I say it out loud, that makes it real or something,
that's right.
But really that's what would bring you freedom, is like being able to confess it with other people. Yeah. But yeah, you kind of think, well, if I articulate this, then it's real. If I just sort of shove it down, then it's not, but that can just make it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know during that time that you did seek out a church family.
I did. I went to a church called St. Aldate's, and I think when you're raised going to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, I just like robotically walked to church on Sunday mornings. I mean, I also didn't really know where else to find friends. So I had heard about this church, or we had actually volunteered at it in study abroad. And so I knew about it, and it was a relatively big Anglican church kind of in the middle of town. And I think that was huge for me. I think if I hadn't remained in Christian community, it would have been really hard to wrestle with what I was wrestling with. Like, I think I was at a vulnerable point where I very easily could have just been like, okay, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. None of my friends believe in this. And so it kind of felt like a weakness that I really needed, that church. And I really needed to just sit there and know, okay, these other people believe in this. So that's, that was really comforting for me. And I thought that was a weakness. And looking back, I mean, that's probably how we've operated forever, like the early church until now. And so, but it was a really great church, and they had a ton of graduate students who went there. And I don't think I could ever go to their stuff because my classes were at night and their things were at night. But it was really crucial community there. And I met a couple of really good friends there. And I think I did spend more time with church people than I did with my school friends because it was more comfortable and more just easier, and just felt like, okay, you guys get it. We speak the same language. I don't have to censor my Christianese around you guys. And I wish that I had made myself be a little less comfortable in that. Because I think once classes ended, I felt myself really spending a lot of time with, over the summer with church people more so than my school friends.
Well, I think there's like 2 layers of culture shock there, because you have the spiritual culture difference there. And also, if we haven't said it before, you're in Oxford,
right? Yeah.
Right? It's a completely
English
different
people.
country.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've never lived overseas for a period of time like you did, but I lived across the country for a couple of times, and that was different enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like living in Buffalo, New York for 9 months and going by myself, the culture was different enough that is so alienating in a way, just for things to be completely different. And our accents weren't even that different. Like you had complete different, everything there. I wasn't even across the pond, but I think it must have been so difficult just with that double layer of foreign for you,
Yeah, I know. Well, and I think you could experience it in New York too, but I call it culturally inflicted loneliness. Like you just feel lonely. I was hanging around other people. I was actually alone a lot during the day because I didn't have class. My classes were at night. So it would literally get lonely. But just even being around, the first time I went to lunch with all British people, not just expats, because that was a temptation too, was just to hang out with expats and just find other Americans to hang out with, which I did some, but ended up making good friends with British people too. But I just remember sitting there and being like, I am missing whatever is happening here. They would laugh and I didn't know why. I didn't know what had been funny. The words are different. So school there, college, university, those words don't mean the same thing that they do over here. And so it was really hard for me to get used to saying,
they call it
I
all
go to
lift
university.
there, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Pavement instead of sidewalk. Pudding instead of just are you going to bring the pud? I was like, what? Are you bringing dessert? So that was actually an American who said that to me, who had been living there for 5 years. But so you start to sort of adapt to it. I started telling people I'm going to uni because they called it uni over there instead of university. And so, but it did make me feel really lonely. I felt really sorry for myself. And I had, my thesis supervisor was Irish, and I took his class for a semester, and then he was my supervisor over the summer, and he had a really thick accent. I mean, at first I actually didn't understand what he was saying, and then I kind of got used to it eventually. But little things like that just reminded me that I didn't belong. You don't belong here. And I remember trying to make an omelet for breakfast one morning. My roommate, I lived with 2 English girls. My roommate said, what are you doing? I was like, I'm making an omelet. And she was like, oh, we eat those for dinner here. We don't eat those for breakfast. And I was like, I got so mad.
It's not legal to eat that before 12 a.m. I'm sorry.
I was like, I can't do anything right. I mean, it probably looked like I was making steak, and I don't know, to her. But so, just little things that made me feel really lonely. But I think those experiences are so good because it gives you so much empathy for people when they're an outsider coming into any situation. I definitely felt like an outsider a lot of the time when I was there.
Well, I think even going anywhere where you don't know anyone, if you ever been to a party, even in your own town, and maybe you're going to meet a friend there, but they're not there yet, and you don't know anybody else in the party.
It's the worst.
Terrifying. Terrifying.
Especially for an introvert. I mean, that's just
Yeah. You went to an entire country of strangers.
Yes. Yeah. It was really scary. I know. At first I lived with 2 Americans who I like we were acquaintances from ACU. And so that helped for
Yeah.
sure. But there was a lot of like, I don't know anybody. And you can tell by my teeth where I'm from. I mean, it's very clear that I had braces and so in the way that you stand, like I started to be able to point out Americans too.
Yeah,
like, they're
that's so
totally
funny.
American. Yeah. So it's weird.
So you met a whole like host of characters there. Let's talk about Jisoo for a little bit.
Yeah.
Tell me about him.
Jisoo. So Jisoo was my best friend in Oxford. And not everybody asked me about him. So sometimes...
How could I not?
I know. Sometimes the interview's over and I had someone be like, I wanted to ask you about Jisoo, but I wasn't sure if I should. And I'm okay with it.
You put in the book, it's fair game, is
no,
my policy.
It's true. So I met him at St. Aldate's, and he was from Vienna, born and raised in Vienna. But his parents had immigrated from South Korea, like maybe in their 20s, maybe. I think that they were already married when they came. So he had this really interesting background, and we had this like, we're best friends, but are we more than friends thing for a long time.
It's this total Ross and Rachel situation going on for a long time.
We were on a break. So he was sort of like this rock for me. He was a Christian. And I was really impressed with his Christianity because he had been raised in kind of post-Christian Europe and his faith had managed to survive. And so I was really impressed with that. He also studied abroad at UT. He lived in Austin. Oh. So when I met him, I thought he was American because his English is like perfect. And he also speaks French and Spanish. He was just like this amazing person. We didn't end up together, obviously. We did get to email a bunch about this book, though. That was really interesting to have to do. We didn't remember the stories in the same ways necessarily. So that was really interesting, but he was really supportive and nice about it. So I call him there's a chapter in the book called Frontlight, and I call him that. It's sort of a metaphor. I rode a bike in Oxford. Everyone rode a bike. That's how everyone got around. And so you had to have front lights and back lights, headlights and taillights. I don't know why we called them front lights instead of headlights. But mine burned out, or I lost the battery and I just didn't feel like replacing it. And so he would ride his bike in front of my bike when I had to go home at night, or he would loan me his headlamp. Like he was just really... I found Facebook messages of him being like, do you need me to pick you up from class tonight? Because I was at the top of the hill. And so he would ride in front of me. And I realized in the process of writing the book, I was like, he was a front light for my faith. Like I leaned on him, whether I knew it or not, just as this guy I knew who was a few years ahead of me, his faith was really sturdy. Like it just felt really strong. And mine felt really like, depending on who I was with, I believed or didn't believe. And so he was definitely a rock for me kind of that year. And then, yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned comparing stories with him now, because that was one of the things kind of that I think about this a lot when I think about people who write memoirs, but writing about people and the feelings that you're thinking or having towards people, and then knowing that they're going to be put out on paper for them to read later. What is that like?
Oh, it was the hardest part of the whole experience for me, was having to send, because it's a memoir, I had to send everyone their chapters in advance and get them to sign off on it. And I was like sick to my stomach the day that I was sending all of those emails out. And it's super vulnerable. It's like, here's what I really thought about you that whole time I knew you. Here's what I was thinking when you said that. And for some people, like with Jisoo, it was like really all positive, good things. But then I wrote about Ben, who I said, I avoided him in public one time. Like I saw him at a distance and I could have said hi and I didn't. And I walked the other way and he had to read that. And he was so supportive. Like Ben, the atheist, was probably the most supportive of anyone I wrote about in the book. He actually wants me to send him copies so he can like give them all to all of his friends in England and like help spread the word, which is just really cool and a testament to kind of his character. But I had a couple of people who didn't agree to it and rewrote it and like sent it back and still didn't agree, and so I just had to take them out completely. Yeah, so that was really hard, and it made me realize what a people pleaser I am, because it was like physically difficult for me to do that. And I was like, first of all, I should not be so afraid of what people are going to think about me. And I need to be more honest in my life because some people were really blindsided by what I wrote. And I was like, oh, I didn't tell you that I thought that about you, or I'm sure I acted totally different around you. And because I had one friend who didn't want to be in it because she was like, didn't know that I'd done something that I did. And I thought I told her about it. And so, yeah, it just made me want to live more honestly. And warning, if you know me, you may end up in a book one day. So just watch what you say and do when you're around me. But yeah, that was a really hard part of the process that I didn't know I was going to have to do too. I didn't think I would have to actually get permission from people. So,
so that's probably a bad, nasty surprise.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to do this. But it's good to write not knowing that instead of censoring like what you're saying. It's good to, I think Anne Lamott says, write like your mother's dead, or so, like write about people as if they're dead.
Yeah.
Like, which that's Anne Lamott. We're totally different, but she would not like be terrified of sending an email to someone who she wrote about, probably.
Yeah,
as I am.
I remember like a quote from hers about that. She said something like, "Write what you want. It's other people's fault if they're or something like that."
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think that's why I kind of said like.
You censored it. It's my podcast. It's fine.
Yeah, I did. I toned it down a little bit. That's Anne Lamott.
I think it's got to require so much bravery because I think, like, if I were writing, I would be like, "Here's another person I met, and I thought nothing but positive feelings about them the whole time."
Yeah, I know. Just not reality. So.
Right. Yeah. And pretty boring too.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So and it's funny because like Jisoo and some other people reading my version of the story, they were like, that didn't happen, or this, I didn't say that. And I'm like, yes, I did. I mean, it's just weird how memory works too. So I was like, oh, maybe I didn't say that, but I think I did. Or maybe the way that we perceive it just in the future, like we think about it more positively than it was, or. Yeah.
It's interesting what we're finding out about. Just, it seems like recently, the last couple of years, there's a lot of like investigation and study into memory and like how elastic it is, and like we think it's so accurate, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I know. It kind of freaks me out because, I thought I was so sure about everything I wrote, like that happened, and then having people read it and be like, no, like that's just so weird. I guess I wonder why we do that, just to self-preservation, maybe, like kind of.
Right.
Yeah, that was. In the writing process, I feel like I kind of saw that because in the year, I don't know that I pinpointed a moment. I just know that by the time I left Oxford, I was in a much better place faith-wise, and could tell that just by how I contrasted with some other people that I knew. I was like, oh, I'm not really struggling with that anymore. And looking back, there was actually this Christian conference that I went to with Jisoo that was in London. Yeah. That was like a Christianity and art conference, and I'd never been to anything like it. And I didn't want to go. I was really hungover. I talk about that in the book. But I felt really guilty, so I was like, I have to go to the Christian conference. Like I can't cancel it out. So I went, and I'm so glad because they kind of talked about. I've always been really drawn to like, I was studying literature, and I was always been really drawn to kind of the darker stories, and like post-colonial literature is what I was studying, and that stuff can be really dark. And I felt sort of ashamed of that. And I remember talking to my parents, and they were like, you should do your thesis on C.S. Lewis because you're living in his town. And I was like, but I just want to write about these really tragic stories that came out of, post-colonialism. And I thought that was wrong as a Christian to kind of want that. And what this conference did was it talked about, it's not like our job as artists as Christian artists is to tell the truth, period. That's it. And that's, if the truth is sad or terrible, then we're supposed to portray that through our art. And if it's joyful and happy, then we're supposed to portray that. But you're doing a disservice if you're not being honest, because clearly the Bible talks about telling the truth and that the truth sets us free. And so there was something about that conference that made me like switch a little bit faith-wise. And he talked about Psalm 137, I think, which talks about how do we sing, what is it? in the foreign land, how do we sing? And Israel was in Babylonian captivity, and they were like, how do we sing our song in a foreign land for these people? And I just remember writing out that scripture when I got home because it had stuck with me. And I was like, I'm in the foreign land, and I don't want to forget, because Israel was talking about, like, we don't want to forget where we came from. But we're amongst foreigners. And I thought, I don't want to forget where I came from, even though I'm amongst foreigners. And I remember just crying and putting that scripture on a sticky note above my desk. And so it was kind of both of those things, like, okay, well, if I'm experiencing darkness right now, I just kind of learned, it doesn't mean you're not a Christian. Like, that's, darkness is not equivalent to not believing at all. And maybe there's something that can happen. Maybe some truth can come out of that. So it's probably better to just read the chapter. But that was a big turning point for me. I think that was in February. So that was like exactly 6 months into my time there.
So you and I have kind of got to know each other, basically right when this book came out. And I have people that are in my life who will write a book and say, hey, I'm just going to send you this free book. They know I do a podcast. And I have to think of creative ways to say, I really like you. You're a great friend and a good person, but I'm not interested in your book.
That would have been really uncomfortable.
I wouldn't have said it. We're just like ghosted you friendship-wise or something. Andrea, you're such a good writer. It was so good.
Thank you.
And in fact, it's probably why it took me a while to extend the invitation to come on Seminary Dropout, because I wanted to read it first. And I don't invite people on here when I am not into their stuff. Even when I know there's value in it, but I'm not interested in it, I don't. But it was just so good. And obviously, from how it helped me in the sermon I preached last Sunday, that it really helped me to work through a lot of things for myself. So thanks for writing it, and thanks for being on Seminary Dropout.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It means a lot.
All right. That's it. That's how it works. Yeah. So it's 9:00. It's going to be at least 2 more hours before I think it's weird that you're still here. So hang out. There's plenty of food. And thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Seminary Dropout. Remember, you can find all the show notes for this show and all shows at shaneblackshear.com. Oh, and hey, have you ever thought about starting your very own podcast? I bet you have. And I think you should do it. In fact, I've created a course just for you to teach you everything that I've learned over the last couple of years producing Seminary Dropout. So if you're interested in podcasting and want to learn how, go check out my course. You can go there by typing in podcastingforeveryone.org. And you can get a special discount by typing in the discount code Seminary Dropout, all one word. That'll give you 25% off. So go check it out. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay. Thanks to those that left ratings and reviews on iTunes this week. Remember, that keeps the show front and center. Also, remember, you can find me on Twitter at beardonabike. That's at beardonabike. Also, I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/ShaneBlackshear123. And remember that Seminary Dropout is listener supported. You can visit supportseminarydropout.com and press Become a Patron. Remember, this music you're listening to right now is by D.L. Rossi. You can find him online on iTunes and at dlrossi.com. All right, thanks again for joining me for another episode of Seminary Dropout. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Love you. Take care. My best, I always seem to bring that